It appears that the march of the United States turning into a third world country is in full swing. The Ninja 300 is making a triumphant return. And Logan, I think if anything was ever a recession indicator, it's this.
Certainly, yeah. The return of the Ninja 300, I think, raises more questions than answers. And yeah, it has a little bit of an ominous tone to it for sure.
Yeah, so how did this news strike you when you first heard about it?
Well, when I first heard about it, I was like, well, who cares? But then it got me thinking, it's like, yeah, are regular beginner bikes that are supposed to be affordable, accessible, are they becoming too expensive, right?
Right. We've been talking about this on the channel where, like, you know, for a while, it's like, oh, we're getting the displacement creep, we're getting up to 500 cc's, but these bikes have also been ballooning in price. Ninja 500 now, over $7,000. Aprilia RS 457, over $7,000, and kind of gets a little tough to justify.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, think about, you know, when you or I started riding, you could find brand new bikes sub $5,000. That was pretty norm. And now, you know, you pushing 10 years, me closer to 7 or so. It's a completely different landscape for new riders. And I think if you're younger and you're, you know, your early 20s, $7,000 is like a significant chunk of change, you know?
Yeah, that's probably more than a lot of, you know, 22-year-olds have in their savings accounts in general, right? Like, they're like, man, I'm going to yeet that all in a Ninja 500? I'm not so sure. So Kawasaki is now testing the waters, pulling the 300 back into showroom floors. And just as a side note, I mean, their lineup now is absurd. It's going to be, and I'm not even kidding, it's going to be Ninja 300, ZX4, Ninja 500, ZX6, Ninja 650. It's like 50 cubes of displacement between 5 different models. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little excessive, but it's also very kind of on par for Kawasaki, you know?
Yeah, I think so. So the 300 coming back, I think it's a tried and true platform. I have no qualms with it coming back. But KTM kind of tried this, right? With the Duke 200, they came back with that. I don't think it was a big commercial success, but I think it's because it wasn't a 250.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's interesting is these manufacturers that, you know, sell these bikes, these smaller displacement bikes in a lot of, you know, more densely populated countries in Asia or India. We're seeing those models now coming to the US, which would be unfathomable to like the 1980s rider, you know, that's like, I started on a 750 or a 600 as a beginner bike. And they're like, oh, people are literally buying 200cc motorcycles and they're like happy about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you see that. And I think because KTM has updated the Duke, it's now the Duke 250, that kind of creates that, like mental break where a 250 is a full-size motorcycle. Anything beneath that's kind of considered a mini bike maybe for the American palate. But who knows, maybe Yamaha's going to start selling their R125 or whatever here. And
maybe, yeah.
If that's what it takes to get people buying bikes, because the proof is sort of in the pudding. It's like they're not necessarily displacement categories on the smaller end of the motorcycle spectrum anymore. It's like price categories, you know?
Totally.
And you see it like, the amount of like Honda Navis I see in Austin is crazy. Where it's like, because you pony up another $1,000 and you can get a Grom. It's obviously still a mini bike, but it's got a clutch, whatever. In my mind, as like a motorcycle enthusiast, I'm like, I see very little case for the Navi beyond sort of a novelty thing or a fun, silly little thing. But I see them all the time, and I think it's that sub $2,000 price makes it a much easier purchase to stomach.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trends kind of coalescing here, right? You talked about the Navi, I think about the Ruckus. They are almost competing against like general use urban mobility, like e-bikes and that sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Honda's trying the new Moto Compo thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more motorcycle manufacturers trying to get into that space. Cities are getting more concentrated, right? So like use case for a Honda Navi for a young man or woman living in 2025 makes a lot more sense than, like you said, someone in the 1980s, right? But again, the trend is clear where everyone's just going to do more with less. Like, you know, a 25-year-old in the 1980s was like, oh, like I'm 3 years away from purchasing my home. My wife and I are, you know, maybe we'll have a kid. And now it's like the 25-year-old in today's world is like, well, I'm going to be able to afford rent today in my one-bedroom apartment, and maybe I can get a 300cc bike if I save for 6 years or whatever. Like, it's so different than it used to be. And I think if you just look at the products that are for sale, it's reflective of where we are. You know?
For sure.
There's like these ultra high end bikes, like Ducati is cleaning up shop with $85,000 limited edition tricolores, and then Honda's and Kawasaki's selling stuff for the super entry level category, which is what we were talking about pre-production, where it's like maybe there's going to be a beginner bike class, like you said, based on price sub $5,000, like ultra accessible entry level bike.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, we've been talking a lot about CFMoto lately and how they're sort of redefining our expectations of the motorcycle industry and sort of throwing out the rule book and kind of doing their own thing. And with all that Chinese data, dude, maybe they know things we don't know, right? So
they definitely do.
Because it's been something we've discussed before. It's like they build the 450 SS, which is a pretty competitive beginner bike platform, but they've maintained the 300 SS.
Yeah, they got the 300.
And I was always like, well, why would anyone ever buy the 300 when you get the 450, which is so much more bike, not just in displacement, but in features and presence and style and all that stuff. But I think they still sell the 300 because they can keep it at that super low price, which is like $4,500 give or take for a brand new motorcycle
with a warranty from a major manufacturer. You know, like we were talking about how some people, they're willing to go like the Boom BD 250 or Hawk 250 route because they do not want to spend more than like $2,000.
Right.
Again, we think it's bad value for money because you can't resell it, but yeah, like CFMoto, I was the same way where I was like, why do they still have the 300? I thought they had advanced to the 450 and they were going to phase it out. But actually, like, you know, a lot of these manufacturers are looking at their old catalog. If they still have the tooling to build these bikes, they're like, well, maybe we can still sell them, you know?
Right.
So two manufacturers that come to mind, obviously it's Suzuki, right? Like we joked that the GSX 250R is like, I cannot believe this bike still exists. Yeah. But at this point, Suzuki's probably just laughing. They're like, we just keep doing this. Yeah. Like, if we just keep making the same goddamn bikes for 20 years, eventually they'll come back. Yeah. So now it's two models, the Gixxer 750 and 250, are once again relevant, I suppose.
It is painfully ironic, but and sort of indicative of some scary greater socioeconomic thing where these like outdated things just based solely on price earn relevancy again.
You brought up a great example about the iPhone before we started recording, where you're like, oh, you know, they made a phone that was too expensive. Then they brought out the SE or the Mini or whatever, that was under $1,000. Which I can remember a time when a nice this is way back in the day, but I remember when a nice cell phone was like $400. You know, like what was the iPhone when it came out? Like maybe $500, something like that. But which maybe in $20-25 is like $2,000. I don't know. It's just showing us that there is an appetite for motorcycling, but I just think it's ultra cost constrained. Yeah. Like maybe even more so than we had anticipated.
Yeah. And then of course, like on the larger end of the motorcycle spectrum too, like Honda's new Hornet stuff, it's like they're building a bike to meet a price point. Like the price point's the goal. The performance isn't the goal. The top speed isn't the goal. The price is the goal. And that's way less like sexy, right? It's like what we need as a culture right now. You know what I mean? Like it is so dramatically different than in like the late 90s and early 2000s. Like manufacturers wanted to have the fastest bikes with the best top speed.
Prestige.
The Blackbird, the Busa, ZX14, And now it's like, we want to sell the cheapest bike in a given category.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think even in housing, they're trying to do that, where it's like, they understand the median income of an American and they're like, okay, work backwards from there. What's a home that they could buy? And they're like, we have to build homes sort of it depends on the market, right? Don't get mad at me. It's in like the 350 to 450 range, but then it's like impossible given like building supplies and land costs and all this stuff. And then you see used homes on the market. You're like, well, I guess that's worth $1 million because it's in that location and it already exists. So you don't have to build it. But yeah, to your point, everything in the market today is all about a price point. It's not about the specs or the features. And again, we bring up CFMoto a lot, but they're doing that the best, right? Like it's the 675 SS, the 750s, the 300s even. It's a price point. So I think the magic price to me is like sub 5,000 right now. Yeah. Like if you can build a bike for sub 5,000, you're going to win.
Yeah. And because obviously we saw that with Triumph and their Speed 400. Like that was
How many
obviously...
have they sold? Like tens of thousands,
Yeah, it was like record breaking stuff. But then that begs the question, like how many... Like, will that bubble ultimately burst? Because obviously they sold a ton right off the bat because it was a cool bike from a manufacturer that has previously been absent in the sort of entry-level space. It was really cool and it still felt like a Triumph, but it was super affordable. And then they just like flew off the shelves. But it's like, will that bubble ultimately burst where they can't play the like Royal Enfield volume game anymore? Where it's like, of course, if you're selling 1 million motorcycles a year, you can sell them for significantly cheaper than if you're selling, hundreds of thousands.
I mean, I look at it this way. They sold, I don't know, like 50 to 70,000 speed 400s or whatever. There's 1 billion Indians.
Yeah.
There's 1 billion Chinese people. There's 400 million Americans. Like the market, I think, can withstand much, much, much more, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, especially in Indian markets where they use bikes for everything, right? And to them, owning a Speed 400 is like, this is a nice ass motorcycle that I'm gonna like show off and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen comments from Indian viewers and those living in like Thailand and South Asian markets where they're like, a Ninja 400 to us is a very nice, well-equipped motorcycle.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen it's actually kind of crazy. Like I've seen videos with like there's like a guy with like a Daytona 675 in like Indonesia, and it looks so out of place.
No,
like
I'm sure,
everyone's on like little mopeds, and this guy's on this like super bike, to them. But here in America, it doesn't work that way. But we were talking like maybe America will like transition to where those countries are at. Unfortunately, right? Like we don't want it to,
like,
but
much greater disparity between wealthy people and the common man.
Yeah. And I was born in Brazil. I've been there many times over my life. I obviously don't live there. I live in the United States. I've lived here most of my life. But every time I go back to Brazil and I come back to America, I'm like, it's looking more like Brazil every time I come back. There's this thing I was talking to my brother about actually, where when you're on the highway here in America, I think that's where you notice it the most, right? Especially here in Austin, because we're kind of cyberpunk in a way, right? Like a real road on the highway, you'll see like a 2004 Civic with the doors barely hanging on, like front fenders like coming off of the thing, and then like a brand spanking new G-Wagon next to it. And I'm like, this is, poverty aesthetics, man. This is third world aesthetics, and it's getting more like that. So maybe CF Light's gonna make a debut in the States. Maybe we're gonna have an R3 and R5 from Yamaha, right? Maybe they'll just keep selling the R3. MT-03 is super competitively priced, right? It's like under $5,000.
Right,
so
for sure.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with this. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, I feel like a year ago we were talking about how like beginner motorcycles are the best they've ever been, the most well-equipped they've ever been, you get so much bike for what it costs. Yeah. And then I guess we just found out that it costs too much. And so like all these manufacturers are like, because I'm curious what the numbers are on like Ninja 400 sold in the first, when like it first transitioned from Ninja 300 to Ninja 400.
2018 and the before times.
Like how many Ninja 400s were sold in those first few years compared to how many Ninja 500s have sold since, because people were kind of hesitant about that upgrade in general. One, because it's not 500, it's like 451 or something. And even that just rubs people the wrong way. And then also it was like, especially in those higher trim models, significantly more expensive for 50 more cubes, about the same horsepower, just more torque, whatever. It was kind of not an amazing value proposition in comparison. So I'm curious, if Kawasaki's just like, maybe we're a little overzealous with this upgrade. Yeah. And because like obviously to retain, A2 compliance and all that stuff, like it can only be so powerful. Yeah. And maybe they should have invested more in some like quality of life features or whatever, kind of like what the KTMs have. Have a lot of neat stuff on them, or even the CFMotos. So yeah, maybe Kawasaki's like, okay, we're overzealous with the Ninja 500. How can we kind of backpedal a little bit? Bring the 300 back.
Well, you brought this up where the 500 is difficult to find, and this varies by markets, so don't get mad at me, but it's difficult to find one of those like non-ABS base model single color 500s. Most dealerships have the nice one, the KRT with the TFT screen and the frame sliders and all that stuff. So maybe Kawasaki's going to start shipping more of those base models. Maybe they'll just do the 300s also.
Because we see that a lot too, because I'm sure we'll even get comments on this video of people who haven't watched this far yet, and they'll say, look, pull up the Kawasaki website and say Ninja 500 starting at $5,500 or whatever. But it's like, those aren't the ones that the dealerships stock.
No.
You know what I mean? They always
we're
have the
talking
flashy
out the
ones.
door, right? Like, I think that's something that we do here sometimes, because we can't give you out the door quotes for every single market that you live in. So we give you kind of a range, right? I always say the MSRP of the bike, and then I say like, add another 10% on that to get it on the road after you buy it at the dealership, right? Like it costs money, tax, title, license. people always say, I never pay that stuff. I never pay dealer fees. You got to pay tax, title. You can't walk out the door not paying tax on the bike, right? Like maybe you can negotiate a little bit, but ultimately you have to pay something for it. So yeah, Ninja 500 out the door is a over $7,000 motorcycle. Yeah, usually.
And then with like the tariff surcharge things too, we're talking about. So maybe that's another thing of this thread of people, of these manufacturers considering, okay, how can we maintain affordability in some capacity? Obviously they can't charge less for their existing motorcycles. That just isn't how business works. But maybe the idea of bringing stuff back in, or because even Honda's CBR 300 or CB 300 is kind of long in the tooth too.
Yeah.
And maybe the idea is like, we'll just kind of run with this until the market needs a cheap small bike again.
Yeah. And it could be where a lot of these big four manufacturers have sort of South American building facilities and factories. Because of the tariffs coming from different countries, maybe it'll make more sense to just, like if you're making Ninja 300s in Mexico, just ship them straight up, and then it'll cost less than if you ship them from Thailand or wherever they're built. I don't know, but yeah, it's super weird. Like, I guess watching the slow collapse of America, maybe that's dramatic, but it's weird seeing stuff that was unthinkable in America happening because of the economy. You're like, oh, okay, like this is really getting kind of sideways,
Yeah, I mean, and even some of the most popular cars right now are ones that are really aimed at affordability. And it's like, making an affordable car is like such a foreign concept, it seems, where it's like, it's something that in every other country that drives cars has been the driving factor, is like affordability, usability, whatever.
Yeah.
But in America, it's always been the more luxurious models, more powerful models, more expensive models. Yeah. Where now, again, like America's starting to mirror some of these lesser developed countries, like the Ford Maverick. I see more Ford Mavericks.
I see tons of those.
Because you can buy like MSRP 26,000 for like a base model, which for a truck is unheard of in this
it's
age.
Very cheap. Yeah.
And so I think maybe motorcycles are kind of mirroring that thing of manufacturers just being like, people ain't got no money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like the Europeans focus on like it's like, oh, how much MPG can my diesel hatchback get, right? And then Americans are like, what's the biggest lift I can put on my F-150? Very different concept. But yeah, we will keep tabs on the Ninja 300 coming back to the United States. If other manufacturers come through with it too,
start coming in on the beginner minus entry level. Beginner,
what are we calling that? Because we always do pluses and minuses. Not so. Maybe it's not so beginner. Something like that.
No, I think the current beginners become not so beginner bikes, and then new old small ones are like the new beginner.
Because now think about it this way, right? We're getting crazy with this. It's like entry level bikes like the Ninja 300. You have new classic beginner bike Ninja 500. You have not so super sport R7 Daytona 660, and then you have new generation super sport R9s. It's like you have 4 categories now that are all like very distinct in price point, right? Sub 5,000, 5 to 7,000, 8,000 to 10,000, 10,000 plus is kind of the thing, right? And then nobody's buying.
And especially because displacement means nothing anymore with all those other categories.
It doesn't mean anything.
Like 650s versus 600s versus 890s versus whatever. It's all over the place. Because what do we got? Kawasaki, KTM, in terms of very small bike and whatever, and then Honda a little bit with like their XR 150 or whatever. So I'm curious what other bikes. Maybe Suzuki will shrink down their GSX 8S engine into sort of 450 type thing,
but they'll keep the 250. Maybe drop the price on the 250. Yeah. Money talks, like you said.
Money talks.
I think Honda's going to keep crushing the mini moto game though. Like nobody can touch, Grom, Navi, XR 150, like all those. Nobody can touch that. Like Honda owns that game.
Super Cub.
Yeah. I forgot about the Super Cub. Yeah, lovable little thing.
Metropolitan.
The Metropolitan's cute.
And the Metropolitan's like 50 cc's, so you don't need an endorsement to ride it, at least in Texas. In a lot of states in the U.S.
You could pick one up as a shop bike.
Maybe.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, a little 2-stroke scoot. Is it 2-stroke? I don't know. No, I think it's 4-stroke.
I think it's 4-stroke.
Yeah, I think it's 4-stroke. Honda doesn't make any 2-strokes, as far as I know.
Not for this. No, not at all, I don't think.
Well, we're rambling now, so time to cut the video. Thanks so much for watching, folks. If you like what you've seen, leave a like down below in the video and comment down below of the Ninja 300 being a recession indicator. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.